figuring out what steps I should be taking and stuff like that, but also just stepping up in my role. I think when you have people go down, everybody has to step up a level. And I think a lot of guys, including myself around the defense, are doing that.
Is that something you're comfortable with as a rookie, taking into that leadership role when those guys aren't on the field?
Yeah, I think, because I'm not a leader by myself, Like, we have a bunch of guys who've been doing it for a long time who know how it's supposed to look. So I'm leaning on those guys and leading in my own role. I think the biggest thing is just taking ownership within the role that you have and leading in that. So I think a lot of guys are doing that.
Malaki, if you had to work in that on communication on the team, do you feel comfortable doing that, relaying all the calls?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just like communication. That's something that we work used throughout the week. But I think whoever is going to end up winning the job, that's something that like we practice and we work on. But no, I think whoever's going to go to, it's going to be great.
How different is it out there without Kyle Hamilton? And what would you like on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's different. You spend all that time with somebody. But I was here in OTAs and stuff with and Lewis and everybody, Keandre, everybody that's could be back there. So I think the biggest thing is just building that relationship. I think that's why connection is such a big part. Because you never know who you're going to be out there with. So just really being comfortable with who I'm out there with, and just really flying around and having fun. I think that's what we're going to do.
How do you think things are going so far for you? I'm sure a guy who's made so many plays over his career, you're itching, but you also don't want to try to do too much and get out of position. How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just knowing your job and knowing your role. Like when the play comes to you, it's your job to make it. When it comes, it comes. When it doesn't, it doesn't. I think that's the really good thing about being on this defense. Like you're playing with a group of guys who can do their job at any given point. So just really not trying to overstep. Stay in my lane and do my job and help them out as well.
Malaki, how have you seen different guys step up into like leadership roles with so many of the vocal leaders out?
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are just, stepping into their role that they have and kind of taking ownership, whether that be a leadership role where it's vocal, whether if it's, effort, whether if it's, how you show up in a meeting, how you run in practice. A lot of guys are taking ownership of their role and just kind of, running with it.